See this? Yeah. So this book has been very interesting for me lately. It's giving the perspective of a lady who became super morbidly obese. Super. So, hey, Rebecca. So, to give you a picture of what I'm talking about. So, she said, and I highlighted this chapter. So, she said, BMI is a term that sounds so technical and inhumane that I'm almost eager to disregard the measure. Nonetheless, it is a term and a measure that allows the medical establishment to try and bring a sense of discipline to undisciplined bodies. One's BMI is one's weight in kilograms divided by the square of one's height in meters. Math is hard. There are various markers that can define the amount of unruliness a human body might carry. If your BMI is between 18.5 and 24.9, you are normal. If your BMI is 25 or higher, you are considered overweight. And if your BMI is 30 or higher, you are considered obese. If your BMI is higher than 40, you are morbidly obese. And if the measure is higher than 50, you are super morbidly obese. My BMI is higher than 50. So she begins a chapter like that, talking about how obese and this word, this unpleasant word, is from the Latin obesus, meaning having eaten until fat. And in a literal sense, she said, when people use the word, they aren't merely being literal, they're offering forth an accusation. But the thing that inspired this conversation is because she talks about how when she was a little girl, she was taken advantage of by four young boys. And as a teenager in her adolescence, they took her, she was very young, but they took her to this cabin in the woods. One of the boys talked her into going to this cabin, and she trusted him. His name was Christopher, not his real name, obviously. But him and the other boys held her down while they took turns and they raped her in the woods. And she felt disregarded. She felt like her no meant nothing. Her screams meant nothing. Her yells, her cries, her pleas, they meant nothing. And these young boys, they just took advantage of her in the worst way possible. And it scarred her for life. And it led her to a downward spiral that she started to detest men, but then she also was afraid that that might happen again. So in order to feel safe, she no longer wanted to be seen by the opposite sex. So she would just eat, and she would eat, and she would eat, and she would eat, and she developed her body into a shield of protection from the eyes of the opposite sex. She wanted to no longer be appetizing to any males. She wanted them to just, she wanted to be invisible. And she felt the best way to do it was to make myself so big that they wouldn't even think twice. And so it became a compulsion. Not only was the food her security, it was her safety, it was her shield, but it was also a way to say it was her comfort, right? She felt this was the only thing that could satisfy her. She was eating her emotions. And for 25 years, she never told her parents, she never told her family, she never told the people in the neighborhood, she never told the authorities, she never told anyone for over 25 years. And this was her confession in this book, to basically say that she's still battling with that today. What happened decades ago followed her all the way now. And she's just connecting those dots, realizing how things got to be the way they are. So that is to say, we never really know what is actually happening in someone's mind. We may see who they are on the outside, but we have no idea who that is on the inside, right? We don't know what kind of traumatic experiences they could have gone during their childhood that would lead them to what to us might look like a path of destruction, a path of self-sabotage and self-destruction. Like, doesn't this person see that if they don't know where they're going, they're just going to end up where they're headed? You might think that logically, but there's no logic because it's deeper, right? So it gives a lot of empathy. It gives a lot of compassion for those that we don't understand. That at the flip of a coin, at the drop of a hat, you could be just like that. That something could have happened to you. You could have been taken advantage of or been in a situation that you had no choice. That you couldn't use your voice. That you couldn't defend yourself. And there was no one to answer. No one to answer the call for help. No one around. Who do we become? When we realize that there's no running from us, there's no escape from your body, she felt that the more that she would eat, she created her body, but then she was trapped in a prison of her own making. 577 pounds, looking around and being astounded, but being confounded, not understanding how she could get out. There was no way out. The only way out was through. So if this was you, what would you do, right? Who could you turn to? Who would listen? When we fall into the guilt and the shame and the blame game, do they train the brain to stay the same, to forever remain low and see that image wherever you go, to always feel like you're never enough? When you have that mindset, it can be tough. But I'm so happy that she got the courage to write this down so that other people can read this now, that we can relate, that we can actually see it's not just what's on the plate. It's not just what she ate. It's what she received. It's what she perceived in that intense form of abuse. So thank you for listening. And I encourage you to check this out if you've ever wondered. You know, it's definitely a journey. You know, this life is a journey. Our health is a journey. And not just our physical health, but our mental health. You know, we have to continue the conversation, you know, so other people can have that communication, so people can come out and talk about why these things take place. What are the avenues, the valleys that got us to where we end up in life?